is it obvious that I based my outfit for this video off the cover design of the book? Hello, and welcome to a video reviewing and chatting about Legend of Exorcism Volume 1. I really loved this book, and I wanted to make a video kind of chatting about what I enjoyed about it, you know, what I'm intrigued about, stuff like that. I'm not going to go through everything that happens in the book, and I will be kind of referring to things without context, so if you haven't read the book it might not make sense. If you are coming here because you are wondering whether to read the book or not, I would definitely recommend it. I decided I wanted to read this series actually back last autumn when I saw the announcement that it was going to be published by Seven Seas. I decided that I wanted to read it for several reasons. The first one was simply that, judging by the bit on the back, it sounded like something I would enjoy. It sounded like kind of a fun book, maybe a bit more of a lighter tone than some other danmeis I've read. And I was really intrigued by it. The other reason was because I haven't read a danmei series as it has been being published by Seven Seas. The series I've read have been Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation and Heaven Official's Blessing. And with both of those, it was like getting all the books and reading through them. And I was like, I'd like to be part of the community that is excited for when the next book is being officially released. And the third reason was because this guy has a similar hair color to me. That's it. I was like, there is a redhead on the front cover. I'm invested. And I kind of got really excited about reading it like a long time before it came out. I was really looking forward to it. And when it did come out, boy was I excited. I got to go and pick this up at a bookshop because I was away and there was a local bookshop in the village. And I pre-ordered it there, and I got to go on a little cottagecore walk through the village to the bookshop to pick up my little gay historic fantasy story, and I was so excited about it. And when I got it back and I started reading it, like even before I started reading the actual story, just looking at like this illustration, and then it has a map. I was sold when I saw the map. I love a map in a book, and I love this map so much, and the fact that the colours are like matching the cover design made my day. And then it was also really nice having like a preface from the author. Like, I wasn't expecting that, and it was really nice kind of getting to hear their voice before starting reading the story, and also having context for like when they were writing the story. I also found it very funny that one thing, the book and the time it was kind of set in, it said, it represents one of my favourite viewpoints on life and death during the time that I was writing the Exorcist series. Nothing lasts forever. The myriad things and all living beings are only guests on the shore of the winding river of time. Like, dude, I haven't even got to the book yet. And you're saying things like that? I was just like... I also found it very funny how poignant that was, because I wasn't expecting that poignance sort of, I mean, we're not even at the book yet, but like, to be that present in the book. Like, I have a habit when I read books of getting very interested in the themes of them, especially in sort of like, or the politics of them, or things like that. That's one thing I really love about stories, is their meaning and the themes and the morals or whatever, or the lessons they're trying to teach people. I find that very interesting. And I wasn't prepared for that to be like, just to drop that in the preface of the book. Because that is something that, the impermanence of things is something that I find very interesting, and my relationship to that is something I find very interesting, so I was like, god damn it, I'm not even in the book yet. And we're already there. I really loved the way the book began and the way it introduced the characters and the setting. Hongjun at the beginning of the book gave me serious Disney princess energy. I was like, this is giving like main character, serious like main character, protagonist, fairy tale, Disney princess energy. Like, he has a sidekick slash friend slash guide who is a Kapyao with legs and arms. And he lives on a mountain away from the human world with his like adopted like dad and his uncle who comes and visits every now and then. Like, I love that. And his parents are dead mysteriously, and he doesn't like know about all of that. I love the way that you had such, it was like a real quest of Hongjun being like sent on this. It's like, you gotta do these 3 things and then you can come back. I did kind of like feel it was sad. Like, it did feel quite abrupt to me, the way he was just sent on this quest. I was like, okay, is he okay? And I mean, that was reflected in the fact that you see, I think it's at the end of the chapter, you see Chongming and Qingzhong are like watching him through a pond, being like, no, you're going the wrong way, go that way. And I love that. And again, that like kind of unserious tone, but feeling very real. I love that presence kind of in the book, and the chaos of it. It made me very happy, and I felt like it was done with an incredible lightness of touch, because it rarely felt like it was breaking the vibe for me. It was kind of just, it felt like it was being real. Very much D&D campaign energy, and like in the way that in a D&D campaign you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna do this. It's like, okay, you gotta roll me for that. Oh, I rolled in that one. Okay, well that's not gonna work out, is it? And that's life sometimes. The scene where our male leads meet was so funny to me. Like, Hongjun just like barreling into the capital in the middle of the night in chase of this Yao. Just so incredibly in character and incredibly chaotic, and I loved it so much. And I think there's I've also been watching the Donghua once I finished reading the book, and I really love that as well. But there's one shot from that where they got the shot where, just as Li Jinglong accidentally breaks the, what's it called? The necklace Hongjun's wearing. I want to say the heart lamp. And there's an amazing like still shot of them, and then just Hongjun's obliviousness. I love how the author kind of uses that to get him into the most chaotic, unhinged situations, just because he does not know the social cues of the situation or what's going on. But I also love how it didn't feel overplayed. Like, I never felt like I was laughing at Hongjun. It just felt like I was kind of laughing with him, or at least it didn't feel malicious. It was just so incredibly funny. That of course the place that Hongjun drags the unconscious Li Jinglong to is a random brothel. When Li Jinglong just like jumps out of the brothel window and then everyone sees him, there was a frickin' poem! Like, a passerby is just like writing a poem. Let me find it. Here we go. It's like, shout out to the guy on the street who just sees that happen and is like, I've written a poem about it. It happened like 20 seconds ago, but I have a poem, guys. And also shout out to the translators for translating that poem, because I can't imagine how difficult it is trying to like translate poetry and making it scan. Because this is great. Commandant Jinglong is a man of great virtue. As dawn breaks over Pinkang, our hero comes to. Amid broken roof tiles, our strapping young fellow sheds bitter tears as he departs the bordello. And then his friend just starts like adding in bits to it. Like, we're never gonna know anything else about these characters, just that they're writing random poetry about the latest bits of gossip. I found the way that Li Jinglong's character was introduced once you've kind of met him through Hongjun encountering him really, really interesting. Because you have this scene which is quite a difficult scene. Like, he is being beaten by a family member, by his elder cousin. And the narration that's surrounding him is quite almost derogatory and quite mysterious, because it talks about like him, you know, being referred to as like a spendthrift, and the fact that people struggle to connect with him and stuff. And I was really curious when I was reading it, because it felt like I was missing a big piece to the jigsaw. It was like I've been given all this information about the way people who don't really know him see him. And we're not really And it's like there's this missing piece of information that would explain who he is or why he does what he does, but you don't have it. And I found that really, really interesting because it made him a bit of a mystery to me for at least that first part of the book. And I don't think you get any of his thoughts in that scene. I think it's all just kind of external narration, which is interesting. And I did love that you did get both of the male leads' thoughts in this. I really, really, really like that. The scene where all the exorcists arrive at the Department of Exorcism has to be one of my favourite scenes ever in the history of everything. I was expecting it to be an established department, you know, just having read like the blurb on the back, I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. I had no idea what was happening. As most is the case when you read the blurb, you don't actually know anything about the book. And I expected it to be like an established department with like, you know, people running around and stuff happening, you know, an established system. And when I realized that the characters were walking into a derelict building, I was so excited because partly because I like old buildings and old things, simple as, but partly because it meant that they would be creating their own power system within that. They're not walking into a pre-created hierarchy. They are 5 characters, meaning at one point, 6th one joins in later. No, I can't count. No, that is true. I'm counting the fish. Anyway. Walking into this situation where they don't really know what's happening. Like a classic D&D type setup, which I love. And they're having to work out their relationships to the space and to each other throughout that, and they're having to evolve that. And I love that so much because one of my favourite things in books is the interactions between the characters. And you often get the most juicy interactions between characters when they don't feel like they have a rule book of how to behave in a situation, when they are out of the system. And they are out of the system now. They have these letters they've been given, but they don't know what's going on. There's no door person to check them in and be like, yeah, go this way, the department's there. There's no one there. Morgan arrives and finds Hongjun sleeping on the floor next to a fish. Like... And in each introduction of each character, you instantly get an idea of who they are and can picture them just from the way they're introduced. And being able to write that so seamlessly, so it's like you've just met these characters, but you already know who they are and are invested in their story. So good. So good. And I just love the fact that their interactions healed me from when they first met, because they've just met and they've walked around the department and been like, okay, this is weird. And then they're kind of chatting and like Atai is teasing Hongjun and Hongjun's like kind of stressed by everything. And Morgan fully steps in and was like, stop teasing him. He's stressed. And Hongjun feels completely like, yeah, I am stressed. Things are really stressful. And I think it's Morgan who's like, hey, do you want to talk about it? And they fully have that conversation. They just met. And they are having that really positive level conversation about one of them being stressed. My heart made me so happy. And just the way the characters like behave and interact in general, I really loved. The way the male characters, who are pretty much every character in the book, apart from a few female characters, presented reminded me a lot of the way kind of masculinity presents in Lord of the Rings in some ways, if that makes sense. Like that kind of gentleness and that comfortability with each other and being close to each other and like you know, platonic touches and stuff. That was very present, and I really, really, really loved that flow to it. I thought that was really, really cool. There was definitely like misogyny present, partly because of like the historical setting and partly because like, yeah, most of the characters are male and the female characters are very much tied to their roles within that society. Apart from the villain, possibly. I don't know who she is, but I'm excited. I'm very excited about her. And like, the misogyny does bug me sometimes. Like, I get it, and I get this is a danmei. And you don't... There are great female characters in danmei, but the focus is on the male characters. The pure hilarity of the scene where Li Jinglong barges into the Department of Exorcism and finds the gang sat around playing improvised music, I feel like sums up to me a lot of the humor and why I found the entire book so funny, because you have like the sheer absurdity of the situation, and then you have the how funny the characters' reactions to the situation are, because they're completely serious and they're completely in character, but the situation is so absurd that it just makes it more funny. And then you also have like elements of slapstick with like Hong Jun being like, "Don't hurt him, he's immortal!" And then the other three just knocking Li Jinglong out the window. I just love that these four characters who didn't know each other are like, right, what are we gonna do while we sit around and wait for other people to arrive? Let's play music! Like, my kind of people. Their reactions when they find out that he is their new boss are amazing. Absolutely amazing. And one thing I love is that following on from that scene, this is getting into the part of the video that is going to be me talking about why I love Li Jinglong, because his character really grabbed me. I don't think I've come across a character that's fully like him before, and I love him. He is one of the only characters I've ever read in a book where I'm like, actually, I feel like I could work for you and remain sane. You seem genuinely chill, like you understand people, set good boundaries, and have some idea what you're doing. And I love it. So, yeah, following on from that scene, it's interesting how kind of Li Jinglong really takes charge and tries to set things out on a level. Because we've just had the most unhinged, like, we just had a flippin' fight in the courtyard, you know. This is like about the worst footing you could start a department, you could start a new set of relationships on. And the way Li Jinglong gets everyone together and like genuinely is like, I want to ask, sets clear, want to ask Hong Jun like 3 or 4 questions, and then he's like, and then leave us in the past. And the questions that he asks are to clarify to his cousin, like, I wasn't lying to you. And I found that really sets up, I feel like, how much Li Jinglong kind of values the truth and values like that kind of clarity, which I really appreciate and I love. And I was thinking a few minutes ago how much that is in contrast to his, like, this scene is in contrast to the scene when his cousin is like beating him for supposedly having like run off in the middle of a battle and left his men. During which his cousin never once believes Li Jinglong's side of the story and never once really listens to him. You know, the only response that his cousin would expect to get from him is him like conceding or being like, yeah, I was wrong, or whatever, you know. And it just occurred to me how interesting how opposite those scenes are from each other. And one reason I think I enjoyed the book so much, and I felt so comfortable with it, was because of the communication between the characters. Like, they're very much real humans, and you know, their communication is by no means perfect. But it felt to me like there was a real effort, especially coming from Li Jinglong and Hong Jun, to communicate in a clear way most of the time. I don't know, I found it very interesting. And I love that Li Jinglong's kind of first thing to do after getting kind of the department together and everyone together is to be like, right, we gotta clear this place up. Like, he is not messing around. This man gets things done and proceeds to transform the entire place over like, what is it, a few days? He sinks all of his savings into it. And it's so sweet. Like, the good intentions that Li Jinglong walks into this with are amazing. And, you know, this, I get the feeling, and I don't know if it's is explicitly or implicit, but like this is his dream job. You know, this is what he wanted. Probably wasn't expecting to do it like this, but he is really, really, really trying. One thing I really loved with this book and with other danmei books I've read is the amount of mystery. Like at the beginning of the book and for a lot of the book, you don't know like so much of the context of the characters and everything. There's so much like mystery about what could be happening. Like at the beginning, you kind of you're given context, a bit of context for like his father's death and stuff. But you still don't know a lot about that, and you don't know a lot about that by the end, and I really, really, really love that. And I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in future books because of that. And I got so excited when I found out there are going to be 8 books of this, because I love these characters and I love this book so much. And I'm so excited to see where it's going to go in future volumes. I thought the arc with kind of their first quest, finding the cat, did really well at setting up the characters and the setting, and really giving you an idea of the flow of the story, because you really got to see how they interacted and how they felt about these people who they're kind of just getting to know and getting to meet. The scene where Hongjun is just sat on the rooftop being like, damn, I feel sorry for our boss. And then he just shows up behind him and it's like, I came in when you said you felt sorry for me. It's like I heard everything from there. It's just absolutely priceless. I feel like we have to talk about the scene where they're hiding under the bed. I feel like that just has to be briefly talked about, because it is a strange scene. It is a really, really strange scene. And it was one of those scenes where reading it, I was not sure how I was supposed to be feeling. I wasn't quite sure how to be feeling, because obviously these two are like hiding, and there is a very intimate scene going on above them. And that in itself is very uncomfortable and very awkward, because it's like obviously crossing various boundaries of both parties that they are listening in on this scene they have not been given permission to. And there's a dead body there. And Li Jinglong is kind of reacting to the situation. And another reason I struggled with it is something I'm just going to go off on a little tangent on. And I would like to clarify that this is me talking about how I kind of reacted to this. This is not kind of me talking about like in any way the morals of this or like whether it's good or bad. This is just like me saying like, oh, you know, I was surprised how sour the fruit salad was. That's not me saying the fruit salad is bad. It's just saying it surprised me. Okay, is that clear? Great. Okay. I was surprised by the age gap between the characters, because Hongjun is 16 and Li Jinglong is 20. And in my head, that is quite a big age gap. And I think you're given like the context of the time, of the fact that I think it's mentioned at one point that like, you know, the customs of Great Tang are quite liberal, and like someone as young as like 13 or 14 might be considered an adult. So that's a useful piece of context. But the relationship I felt was between them was very true to their ages. Like Hongjun he's like a mid-teen. He is starting to kind of come into his own as a bit of an adult, but he is still very much learning about things and is still very much a kid, you know? And there was that sort of slightly protective role that Li Jinglong took, because partly because Hongjun doesn't really know what he's doing. He's new here. But also partly because of that age gap. And Li Jinglong, you know, he's been about the world. He knows a lot more than Hongjun does. He is also like an adult and has been an adult and treated as an adult for a while. He's 20. And that created quite a big power imbalance. That didn't make me uncomfortable really in the book, but it does make me think about how I might react to the way things are done in the future. And I think also, like, you know, bearing in mind that part of my context for this is like, I'm 19. I'm nearly as old as Li Jinglong, and like, the people who I know who might be 16 feel so much younger than me and in such a different stage of life that seeing a relationship kind of proposed between two characters with such a large age gap really threw me off. And I think it's something that kind of, I'm interested to see how it will go and how I will react to it in future books. And it did make me slightly thoughtful about how I reacted to that scene, because, you know, if there was less of an age gap between those characters, part of my brain might be joking about like the compromising position they're in. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that because of that age gap. And again, this is just me commenting on how I'm reacting. Everyone else has complete right to react however they want, and there is not judging that at all. This is just me noticing how I reacted because I haven't come across an age gap like that before in a story that I've been invested in. Okay. Tangent over. Probably onto another tangent in a minute. Anyway. And then obviously you have the like whole thing of there's a corpse under the bed. Seeing Hongjun just wandering around Chang'an and like visiting places and wanting to sightsee was so fun, and I loved the part the city played in the story, how like alive and kind of real it felt, and also just the entire way the historical aspect of the book was done. It felt really, really easy to access. Like, it was part of the story, but it just felt like it was naturally a part of it, like it would be if you were actually there, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't feel like it was dominating, and it didn't feel like a history book. And I really, really loved how seamless that felt. And also, like, this book made me want to research the history surrounding it. Like, partly because I want to cosplay Hongjun and I'm working on that, so I was like, this has a historical setting, I should know more about that. But also just partly because it felt really interesting and a really rich history to it. I really love that. Again, this is not a history that I am very familiar with, and this is like, this is on the other side of the world to where I've lived or ever visited. So getting to feel immersed in that in a way that felt easy and natural and fun was really, really, really cool, and I loved. I want to talk about kind of the villains of the story, which are the Yao, or some specific Yao that I can't remember how to categorize them, but the ones that we don't like. I really loved the mythological kind of aspect of kind of the concept of the Yao, and also this kind of moral kind of ambiguity within them. Like, the definition of a Yao, I believe, according to the book in the back and other stuff I've looked up, is essentially an inanimate object or animal that has, through taking on kind of the essence of the world around it, cultivated to have a higher consciousness. Which I love just as a concept. That is such a cool concept and piece of mythology. I love that. I found kind of the way it was woven through in kind of keeping that question around the morality of it really, really interesting, because like, it's the Department of Exorcism, but there's a creature, one of the creatures that you're supposed to be exorcising is like just literally runs kind of the place and looks after the people who live there, and they just accept it. I love how quickly they accept Zhao Zilong, probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, and it's just like, oh yeah, he just lives here too, he's like Hongjun's guy. And also with the fact that, you know, Hongjun is half Yao, and the fact that Mugen has some kind of connection possibly to the Yao through the fact that he can transform into a massive grey wolf, which is wild. But they're also, their job is to like exercise Yao, and it's actually a really interesting conversation I want to refer to between Hongjun and Li Jinglong. I just turned to a random page and the first thing I read is, "Run!" Li Jinglong bellowed. I wonder what scene that was. And this is one of my favourite scenes. It's when Li Jinglong has come back from his very difficult, very toxic meeting with a bunch of official ministers and stuff. And Hongjun has just had a nightmare and is brewing tea, and they're just chatting, and I love that scene so much just for kind of the vibes of it. And I just love scenes where you just get like the two love interests just sitting having heart-to-hearts like late at night in weird situations. But it just occurs to Li Jinglong, which this is probably the most relaxed we've seen him in the entire book so far. It occurs to Li Jinglong to like ask, like, they call us the Department of Demonic Exorcism. Why not Yao Exorcism? I've seen Yao, but what about demons? Where are they? Are they also in Chang'an? And that's a really good point. And I love that he just asks it. And Hongjun takes a second to think about this and kind of also considers everything that he's seen since he came to Chang'an. And the fact that he had a very sheltered upbringing prior to that. And then he answers, they call us demon exorcists because our final duty is to dispel the pain and suffering of the divine land, to drive the demons from the hearts of all living beings, and to cleanse the human realm of its fog of lingering demonic energy. And that's really interesting because, again, in Hongjun's just like very seamlessly saying something very profound. Because that is kind of hinting at that, you know, again, this comes up kind of several times in the book that, you know, Li Jinglong's like, I don't hate Yao, I just hate people who go around murdering other people and like thinking they can get their way about it. Which is, again, interesting because it would be so easy for it to be set up as like a lot more of a them and us situation. It is a them and us situation in a lot of ways, and the way they deal with the Yao is merciless. But it would be so easy for it to be set up more like that. But because of kind of the intersectionality you have of this group and the fact that there are Yao within the group, I feel like that softens their approach, and they do have kind of, there is quite a noble and an idealistic tone to it. Also married with that, there is also quite a ruthlessness to it. You know, I found it interesting the way that the Exorcist didn't hesitate to kill Yao. That was something they just did. And there was I did struggle with that at points. Especially it was very interesting that the author decided to include a backstory slightly to Jinyun and Feiyao, I think that's their names, the fox and the owlfish. And kind of there was a real strength and a real tenderness to their relationship, and the author really, really included that. And that adds a whole another moral level because you're seeing that between the villains. And I did find it interesting that there was no talking stage when Feiyao came to pick Jin Yoon up from the guardhouse. Like, they just go straight in there with trying to attack these people. There was no kind of trying to get information or anything, which I was expecting there would be. It kind of makes sense in the fact that they probably didn't think they would get any information, and also the fact that it would have been very easy for Feiyao and Jin Yoon to like get an upper hand in the situation. Like, you can see how strong Feiyao is. But I did find that interesting. And again, looking at like Du Hanqing, the Yao that Hongjun befriends, like that scene made me so happy. Just like so many little bits of it. The fact that they just sit and talk poetry for hours. It's this is what boys should mean. Sitting on a bench having arguments about whose favourite poet is the best. It's so sweet. And the fact that like Hongjun is like oblivious and slightly flustered, and Chu Young's is like, gosh, I'm so glad the chief isn't here. Everyone else is shipping them but them, and I love it. Like, Du Hanqing is presented as like a very warm character, but then you do also have, there is a question about a Yao's nature and sort of the way Yao like attached to humans. And you know, I don't think it's necessarily quite clear. I'm not sure, maybe it is, if Du Hanqing's, I think he romantically likes Hongjun, which is very sweet. But you know, you also see that the Yao are kind of very hierarchical. You know, Du Hanqing is right at the bottom of that, and it does kind of make it more sad. It got me more invested in him in a way I really had to question. Because you know, you see him go out to like get food with Hongjun and go to a bookshop and everything, and he's like having the time of his life. He is so happy. And also it's so hard for Hongjun because he isn't like, this is a person, you know, he might like to be friends with, but he's here on a job, and part of that job is emotional manipulation in a way, and that's really hard. And I feel like you really saw Hongjun kind of grow up throughout that arc, because he is given a real responsibility to that. And I thought that, you know, the others did try and support him through that. And Li Jinglong, you know, tried to give him space and stuff, but it is hard. And the fact that they all went back to check if Hongjun had marked Du Hanqing's door. It hurts. It hurts. The moral ambiguity has got me. They do burn all of the Fox Yao, apart from Du Hanqing. And that is the image of them taking these creatures out of all of these rooms. These creatures are unconscious, piling them up, and then setting them on fire is honestly quite disturbing. And I think it very much makes sense, and it fits from a strategic thing to do. And it fits also, I would say, the time. But I did find it hard. And it's a very stark reminder of the very present violence that, you know, is present in this landscape, in this book, and, you know, in the wider world, in life. And, you know, a lot of what I've been talking about with this book is how funny it was, but there were a lot of layers to it. And I think the thing was, the layers were generally quite light and quite easy to access, which was lovely. But there is still that violence and that darkness to it that you get in a lot of, well, books that, I don't know, get in a lot of books. There we go. And you see at the end, from kind of the villain character you don't know, those were her children, apparently. All of those Fox Yao were her children? Which again, for me, brings up an uncomfortable thing about the way the female characters of the book, or the way they are treated. I don't know. That's a lot. That's a lot to think about. I'm gonna butcher this name. Zhao Zilong? Hope that's correct. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the pronunciation of the names. I love his character so much. The way he's kind of like a cross between like a guide and a sidekick and the random animal companion, and also like kind of like a parental figure rolled into one character, and it works. Just like, I love his like sass, and how he's very much a character, and he's very much present. And even if he is a little fish with arms and legs, he is not going to be sidelined in this story. And I love that for him. I also find it very, very funny that like the Department of Exorcism is made up of like 5 guys and then 1 fish who looks after all of them. Like, it is in the book that he is doing Hongjun's laundry, he is making their food. Like, this man deserves a raise. This man deserves a raise for what he is doing for the department. I really hope he's getting paid, because if not, I feel so bad for him. The way the dynamics of the group grow and change I find really interesting, and I think just the writing of the characters and the way they interact is so strong, because they all have such specific and strong characters, but they're also, you can instantly like tell the tropes of who they are. But also you don't know much about them. That's one thing I find really interesting, is even at the end of the book, we don't know much. Like, there are still so many secrets to be revealed about all of these random guys who just showed up to this department and were like, hey, I'm here to be an exorcist. We don't know much about any of them, and at points during the story I was quite suspicious of them. It's hinted at several times that Atai, Mergen, and Chuyonsa know each other. And that would make sense by the way they're interacting with each other, and they're not doing a very good job of hiding it if they do know each other. And even Li Jinglong like hints at the fact that he knows that but isn't gonna like push them to reveal anything. And that's really interesting, because in some ways they do split off into kind of like a 3 and a 2. And I did find it interesting how kind of cliquey, I would say, that trio kind of felt to me. Like in the way they kind of encouraged like Hongjun to like slack off and like go and hang out with them outside the city walls. I wasn't really expecting that. And it was kind of interesting in some ways how othered Hongjun is from the group, not necessarily in an overtly negative way, but because he is the youngest and he doesn't talk about his background very much. I would love to know who the others think he is, because there is no way that Atai, Chuyonsa, and Mergen are not gossiping about who this random kid is. I bet they have so many theories, and I want to know what they are. And also because of the fact that Hongjun trusts Li Jinglong, which the others don't. And again, I found it interesting how much kind of prejudice they had. And like, again, the way that the author sets up really seamlessly these like 3-dimensional characters who I feel like I could be in a room with and be interacting with and have to like navigate. Like, my brain is doing the maths of how I would navigate these people if I ever met them in real life. And they're fictional people in like a city from like 2,000 years ago, is it? It's a big number, that's for sure. It was great seeing how over the course of the book, the other 3 kind of gained trust in Li Jinglong through like seeing his leadership and everything, and I have a lot of respect for Li Jinglong for letting them take time to trust him. Like, he doesn't push them. He could have so easily been like, well, you didn't help out with tidying up the house, you know? And he doesn't. And I have a lot of respect for that, because I feel like I would get a lot more upset about that than he did. And because he kind of gives them time to trust him and to actually, you know, get their asses in gear, by the end of the book, you know, I think there's a point after Li Jinglong, after I think Chuyonsa's like, how are they gonna, how do we know they're definitely gonna eat the food? And Li Jinglong is like, yeah, I got Mergen to like put a bunch of salt in their food, they're gonna eat it. And Chuyonsa's just like, damn, I would follow you to the ends of the earth. It's like, the trust has truly been proved in Li Jinglong's scheming. They trust him as a fellow schemer now. One scene I found interesting from a lot of perspectives was the scene at the end of the book where Hongjun and Li Jinglong are talking to the Emperor and his consort. I believe that's the correct term. I found that a very interesting scene. To start off with, I just love the ambiance of it, like the fact that they're like sitting in this kind of like really cool room with, I think it's like a pond, they can see the stars. Like, I loved that. But I also found it really interesting getting to see a different side of Hongjun. Like, this side that is like really book smart and can like chat about like the making of the world and different religions and different teachings eloquently. And it's also really interesting because you get Li Jinglong being like, what? It's like, this is the kid who stands there trying to work out the schemes that his like companions are coming up with, and now he is like chatting with ease to the emperor about matters of religion and the afterlife and reincarnation. I love that. And it did, one quote that really stood out to me was a quote from Yang Yuhuan, the consort, when she said, if the four of you were to get into a fight, you would each end up calling upon different gods. How novel. Like, that really, for me, kind of explicitly referenced the diversity of background kind of within that. And it was interesting when I was doing kind of research into like the time period, like that was a time period where there was a lot of travel and a lot of like people traveling from all over the world were in Chang'an. So the research that I did was quite minimal, but that was something I did come across during research. I don't know. Like, I found that really interesting. And then I found what Hongjun follows up with really interesting as well, because he says, there are many spiritual techniques in the world, but they're all different manifestations of the same underlying principles. My dad taught me there's no need to get caught up on the particulars so long as your intentions are honourable. That's really, really interesting. And I love that so much, because that is really explicitly, I feel like for me, bringing up one of the themes of the book in this kind of acceptance and trying to be level with people, and also call out evil and people who are not doing their job or who don't have the best interests of things at heart, which was really, really interesting to me. If you've got this far in the video, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've had an absolute blast, as you can probably tell, rambling about this book that I got so invested in and I love so much. My cheeks hurt now from smiling too much, and my voice is probably gonna be like dead in an hour, so yeah, that is the end of the video. I'm very excited, the next book is coming out next week and I cannot wait for it, and I'll probably make another one of these talking about the next book once I've actually read it, and then I find time to film it, so who knows when that will be. But yeah, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to find me elsewhere, I am on Instagram and I'm on TikTok. I post daily on TikTok, and I'm also on here. I post shorts here, and I want to make more content on here, but it takes time, and I'm tired and busy, so who knows. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you're having a good day. And bye!